Welcome to Frag-Out Deep Dive Reviews. My name is Mr. E. Fragrance, otherwise known as Neil Bawadi, joined by
Mr. Saga.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to talk and critique a fragrance that we both have.
Mm-hmm.
And that fragrance is none other than Zernell Gillie's Rock. Now, with this critique review, we're not just going to be smelling it and telling you what it smells like and whether we like it or whether we give it. We're not going to give it any ratings. That's the first thing.
We'll probably mention if we like it or not.
We'll like it. We'll do that. But we're not going to give you a 1 out of 10 rating on anything we do inside.
Compliment getting panty dropper.
Yes, we'll drop the lines right here.
Yes.
To catch all the algorithms in the first 5 seconds.
Yes.
But in the actual critique / review, we're just going to talk about the fragrance itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, and speaking of the fragrance itself, me and Mr. Saga here have been talking about Rock for, it's been what now?
Since the release, it's been probably a month, hasn't it?
It's been about a month. And we've been kicking around this idea of doing this style of video where we just kind of talk about the fragrance and literally, like, kind of, that's how the name spawned up, was deep dive into the fragrance itself. And what a perfect subject matter. Is like Zernell Gillie, just the brand itself paints a very easy to jump in topic. It's about music.
And not only that, but I love the idea that Zernell Gillie, right off the rip, by it being about music as opposed to trying to put you into the setting of a place where that music's being played, like a club or something like that. That's not what it's doing. It's literally the music. How does a song progress? Chords, a build-up, a staccato, a chorus, a bridge, all that kind of stuff, which I think is so much more intriguing than boiling it down to, it smells like a bar on Main Street in some town, I think that's a really interesting way in which the scents are being created.
Absolutely. And the background that I have here with the rock concert that's there, even though that is portraying time and space, his fragrances don't really do that per se. Like we were saying, as you pointed out, it kind of just portrays the sound of the music itself, like in house. Yes, exactly.
This one doesn't smell like a basement club in Chicago to me, personally.
No, it definitely does not. That would definitely be a different fragrance.
That would be a different fragrance. Yes, yes, it would be.
But that's what we're going to do in this video series. Is we'll talk about fragrances based on the critique, the art of the fragrance, and what it was, the concept to make a fragrance about rock. And one of the things that we both talked about was, what does this particular fragrance evoke? And we did get a little bit of input kind of from Zernell himself when he talked about what his influence was for making this fragrance. And personally, I can't think myself of a better band / song from my point of view that talks about the name rock more than, I'm going to put it up now, Van Halen Jump. And we're going to actually play a little bit of it because we're crazy like that.
Controversial track at the time,
Yes.
you know, because he's playing keyboards. Everyone was like, Eddie Van Halen's playing a keyboard. What is happening?
But I think when I smelled the opening of Rock, it portrays that electric kind of zing that you get from a song like Jump.
Mm-hmm.
Off the bat, it jumps into this bright, effervescent
Mm-hmm.
citrus accord, which he points out as being yuzu.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't really get it as being yuzu, but I do get it as being just a very bright, effervescent citrus accord.
I think that yuzu for me as a citrus note, when I see that in a fragrance, I'm making the connection that is even more citric, if you could think of that, than a bergamot note. Bergamot tends to be a little bit more rounded oftentimes, whereas yuzu to me, at least in the assumption that I make, because you're right, it doesn't smell yuzu. But it is this really sharp, really realistic smelling citrus. Like you get that sort of, and I love the effervescent line. It's like a soda, but it's a soda where it's like you've squeezed fresh citrus in with soda water. Like it's that type of natural smelling. San Pellegrino-esque almost.
Yeah. And that kind of rock opening from Van Halen's Jump is definitely the picture that I get in my head when I think about the opening of Rock. So
no, I think that's very astute. It has that. There's an 80s vibe to this. Not 80s in the sense of when you're thinking of like 80s fragrances, but 80s, this has that sort of nostalgic factor that most of his fragrances do have, you know, because it is him evoking a time period in his life. And it's so cool that there's that ability to sort of share in that sort of maybe shared memory, right?
Yeah, that's one thing that's great about music itself is that for each person, it's very much a shared memory, but also your individual experience with it too, because there's a lot of songs that people can hear and almost like a lot like fragrance, right? Can instantly bring you back to a moment. Like when I hear there's a particular Metallica song that brings me back to when I was in high school. And this is kind of funny. This little story here is I was way into wrestling when I was a kid, and I was way into these kind of, it was like a mail order wrestling federation where you would make your character up and you would send your character in, and then you would pick from a list of moves that they had 1 to 100, and each week the power of those moves would fluctuate, and you would pick, these are my 10 moves. You wouldn't know what your power was going to be going into that week, and then you'd pick matches and stuff like that. And the point of my memory is when I was picking out my moves, thinking about what I was going to do, I just happened to be listening to Metallica. And now when I hear certain Metallica songs, specifically from the Black Album, it brings me back to thinking about that moment when I was in the library of a school, picking out these moves and like sending it off. And I happened to do like one of the best weeks that I ever had, or best months. It was categorized in the month or grouped in a month. Best month I ever had was when I was listening to that and picking out those moves. I was just like, it just brings back that memory. It's a fun little thing that kind of also fits into this because Metallica is rock. It's more of the metal side of rock, but it's more rock. for sure.
Yeah, we're taking the expansive idea. If you've caught a little glimpse of what my T-shirt has, you're gonna be like, "That's not a rock band." It is, and Glenn Danzig would desperately tell you it's a rock band. But anyway, yeah, it's when you talk of like olfactive connections to memory, I think second to none other than that is music. You know, I would say, like there's certain songs that I would struggle to get through. You know, there's certain songs where I have memories attached to them where it's just not something I really listen to anymore because it just brings up some bad ones. And in the same sense, that is kind of intriguing, is that someone might have heard the opening bars to Jump just now and started crying. You know, that's fantastically powerful and so intriguing to kind of base so much of that. But I mean, let's be real. I'm pretty sure Zernell Gillie would tell you that music is the most powerful thing that exists in the world, right? Like that's something that I don't think would be a far off assertion for him. But yeah, I think Jump does a great job in kind of captivating that sort of that opening. And even as it's starting to dry now, it's like you get those remnants that are still playing into the fragrance itself. The way that you and I think, kind of talked about this was, this is a fragrance that has that really big, beautiful, bright opening, immediately catches your attention. This is not that sort of, you know, to use a Metallica reference, this isn't One from Metallica. Dun, 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 you know, ad nauseum for such a long time. That's probably my favorite Metallica song. And Justice for All, I think, is an underrated album. It's overhated. It is, yeah. But I think that the idea of this sort of immediate punch is rock. Like it is balls to the walls. It's Van Halen. It's Zeppelin. It is these sort of, I mean, we've got a couple of examples, but I think where my example starts to fit in a little bit more is there is a darkness to this fragrance. It begins to manifest a little bit towards the mid and the dry down, where more of those kind of complex sort of woody notes come out. That, again, I still need to smell hemlock, just straight hemlock, so I can understand what that is bringing to the table. Because again, hemlock, I know this is a rock fragrance. Hemlock is like the most metal of all plants, I think, because it's used to poison people. You know, sure. Like that's so metal. Or you know, I think that's something intriguing there. And there's this sort of dark kind of nuance that sets in, which makes a bit more sense with my pick for my song that definitely still has that opening factor to it. It is a song from the Misfits. It's called Bullet, which is a song where the lead singer is pontificating about the assassination of John F. Kennedy in Dallas. So let's take a look at that, shall we? So, and in a really weird way, I think the Misfits as a band really actually fit with rock, because it's a fragrance that is punchy and loud and has a beat to it. I mean, the Misfits, the whoa-ohs in most of their songs is kind of that kind of iconic aspect to it. But the Misfits are a band that present themselves and purport themselves to be this very evil and scary, and they are so camp, right? Like they had a song called Halloween. They have a song about London being locked in a London dungeon. What that means is they got arrested and they had to sit in the drunk tank for a night because they were fighting with people. So it's this interesting thing where I think rock has those similarities, where rock has a bite to it and an edge to it. But I would never look at this fragrance and say like, oh, this is so complex and I can't wrap my head around it. It's very easy to wrap your head around. I think it's very easy to embrace.
That's one thing about Zernell Gillie's kind of mindset for a lot of the fragrance he has. they're not stuff that are gonna make you try to scratch your head and try to understand the fragrance. They're very easy to digest
Yes.
and get a grips to. So that it's a great brand to kind of really dip your toe into niche too. If you feel like you're the type of person that just wants to enjoy fragrances as a kind of I just want to smell good type thing. Shout out to someone else's series that happens to be right next to me who likes to do a series called "It Just Smells Good."
Well, and you can also bring up Zernell's T-shirts that you have as
Yes.
well. Damn, I smell good.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what it is this he makes the fragrance about the musical genre, but in a digestible way. Even like we'll probably get to this because we're talking about doing more than just rock. Jazz, like jazz is not a type of music you would think of as being something that you could easily digest. Some people get turned off to jazz because of how eclectic it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the scent itself is eclectic in its own way. It's not eclectic every second as you smell it. It's more eclectic in each time you smell it.
Yes. Yeah, as I've talked about before, I think jazz is fascinating as a fragrance because I've had multiple wearings of the fragrances. You can kind of see specifically in the winter, I really enjoyed it. But there was moments where like you spray it on and you're like, man, I didn't realize this was so like orange mandarin heavy. This is crazy. I don't remember that. And then you spray it on the next day and there's like this tobacco nuance that is much more prominent than you were used to. And what's cool is as it evolves and changes, again, there is a complexity. Again, I think Zernell Gillie, one of the ways that I sort of define this house is if you're really good at something, it makes it look simple. It makes it look easy. Jazz has the ability to where it's like, I'm getting solos. There's a certain note that crops up during the wearing that seems to just kind of linger a little bit more prominently than perhaps it did at the beginning. The end, there is this moment where everything shines kind of in a jazz setting where you have those moments. And again, like that's super cool. Rock has that a little bit less so, where there is notable, I think you can definitely discern in rock that sort of opening, bright citrus, middle, which becomes a little bit more floral dense, white floral on my hand with a bit of an edge and a tinge to it. Mm. And then that sort of woodiness starts to come out definitely towards the bottom part. I still get the citrus throughout. Granted, it might be because there's still, I spray with my clothes. So there might be some of that top note that's just not burning off because it's not going to get the heat. Yeah. But it's something where the idea of that sort of evolution is so consistent across much of the line. Unless it seems like house, I don't really find it to be super, it kind of remains what it is, but I love what it starts out as and what it finishes as. So I'm not mad about that. But I think that if you're talking about evolution, jazz has that evolution aspect. Rock has that evolution aspect, the distinct kind of three-piece, which I think is really cool.
I get the only thing I think I was going to bring up Zernell's site for a second. Mm-hmm. Look at, full screen it just a little bit so we can see a little bit better. Is in the middle there, you see that black hemlock, right? Like you were pointing out. What is black hemlock and what does it add to the composition of this fragrance? I really think that from looking at like what a hemlock looks like, I think it kind of looks almost like an herb. And that's kind of why it looks to me, and when I smell it, I kind of get the same type of like herb sensation I would get it's in like a thyme or
that would make sense. I'm picking up the ginger really heavy today. it's spicy on me today. I definitely am getting that kind of ginger. It's tickling the nostrils a bit, you know, like it's and it's not amberwood tickling where I'm like, oh gosh, it's going fuzzy. It's you're sticking your nose in spicy.
Because where you can get with yuzu, it's very sharp, right? And the lime too is another, because it also has lime. It that is also very sharp and kind of tinged ever so slightly green, a lime fragrance usually. With the hemlock, it is kind of like herbaceous. That's what I'm kind of guessing, because the tuberose for me, I don't really necessarily get so much tuberose per se, but it does have a smoothness.
There is a white floral nuance. The first time I smelled this, because like we both bought it on release, saw the notes, went okay, yes, and then I didn't look at the notes again until I smelled it again after I had already sprayed it. And you're right, tuberose to me, I get like either buttery or bubblegummy, and it's neither of those. It came off, there's a white floral nuance. I didn't think it was tuberose again until I read it again. I thought it was like a jasmine or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think the tuberose does a good job in, like you were kind of saying, smoothing out that mid, because there's a lot of very pinpointed, like staccato, if I can borrow a music term, notes in that opening. It is very direct and piercing at times. So to have that sort of mid come in and smooth it out a little bit, I think is really nice in the way that it kind of has that evolution.
Another kind of like inspirational piece when I think about this is more going back to more of Van Halen is kind of like Eruption, right? It's definitely that the rip of how Eruption starts, and then how kind of Eruption goes. It does go, and it does change a bit from being like that frantic opening that it has. And I'm going to share it now, and we'll get to listen to some of this.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Eddie. That's for sure. Finger's got to be getting tired.
It's iconic, man. If you wanted to point towards arguably the most iconic solo, I think that you would be hard pressed to find ones that are going to immediately jump to mind. Like, I'm trying to think of ones that immediately jump to mind that I'm like, oh no, Eruption's probably up there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Good old.
Yeah, I think that that sort of that even that again, right? We have this sort of pounding bass driven staccato kind of thing, and not to throw anybody under the bus, but a mutual acquaintance of ours talked about the idea that they felt like the fragrance didn't add up to them when they were thinking of the idea of rock. I believe the term he used was it felt like pebble, which I think, and he expanded upon it, of course, but I think he was looking for, monkey special and didn't get that. I think that he was looking more so at it as, what's a rock venue smell like? Who goes to a rock venue? Was a rock star smell like? And it's like, that's not what this is. This is, what does the music smell like? Yeah. Because I've also seen some folks that have made comments in a similar vein to that, where they're like, well, this isn't really like a rock fragrance, it's like, again, what does a rock star smell like? Rock stars, well, I don't know how much nowadays, but back then, like Van Halen, what do they smell like? Sweat and booze. No offense, not really what I'm interested in smelling like. But you know, I think one of the things too is, as we've kind of talked about the mid and the dry down, is the band that jumped to mind for me as well when I heard, or when I heard. I'm sure he's working on that. How you can spray on a bottle and it's going to spray a note, and free ideas for you. But the idea of a band for me that I think really embodies this kind of scent is also a band called the Gaslight Anthem. And specifically, one of the songs that I thought about was one off their most recent album a couple years ago, which was an album that came out after a long drought, where they had stopped recording as a band. Fallon, who's the lead singer, had continued to make music kind of on his own. And then they decided to get back together. And one of the, I believe it was actually the first track that was released, is a track called Positive Charge, which is a cool kind of thing because, one, it has, I think it really represents rock in this really interesting way, in the way that the song progresses completely. Like, you have the opening, which you'll kind of hear, which in the studio version starts off with the lead singer kind of yelling, kind of getting into it, which is funny because in an interview he did, he talked about the idea how embarrassing it was to be in his 40s still yelling. And I was like, that's why I love your band. Please keep yelling. But the idea of the song itself is someone talking about, very autobiographically, falling out of love with something that you have loved for your entire life, and then trying to find that positive charge again. And it's very beautiful. The song itself, I'll kind of play this live version to, again, we're kind of making sure that everything's on the up and up here, where, again, this is fair use, transformative. We're reviewing, discussing. So now the AI bot doesn't care about that, but it's on the up and up here. But let's listen to Positive Charge from the Gaslight Anthem here to kind of get that. And you can kind of see there where it has that big opening and then still driving, right? There's still that driving bass and drums and stuff, but it definitely brings it back down a little bit. And then it'll have moments where it kind of peaks again. I mean, you could probably even say that with the fragrance itself, right? Where if you go from a cold room to a warm room, that opening's going to come back.
Yeah, it will bloom again. And I like when we like to point out about the title rock. Rock is also one of the most diverse musical genres like in existence, because there's so much variety in the genre of rock that they have so many subgenres that I don't know if there's any other musical genre that has as many as rock does. Because you could think about like
sometimes to its detriment.
Because you got alternatives, you got when you kind of go into metal a little bit.
I had a book in high school which was literally probably about that thick. That was literally just an encyclopedia of metal subgenres.
Yeah,
because I was that annoying metal guy in high school that was the elitist prick who thought my taste in music was great because everyone was just angry, and it's
Yeah.
like, you just don't get it, man.
Punk rock, you know, all
Punk,
like
yeah,
that genre.
different types of punk within the genre.
Yeah.
You know, post-hardcore, hardcore, post-punk, pop punk, pirate metal. Like, these are just, there's so many different things in regards to that, which I think you're correct in that assessment. Again, that might be my ignorance showing that there's like, you know, there's a multitude of other types of art styles that then also have their own sort of subgenres.
But I think that's why people can take a look at rock, the fragrance itself, and have some sort of predetermined thought of what it should sound like, because their particular interest in rock lies more in a rock that doesn't sound / smell like this rock.
Right.
So, and that's where kind of the clash comes in, you know, not the band, but, you know,
I was going to say, we're talking punk rock again.
But the band as well.
That's kind of what I was thinking with the Gaslight Anthem as a choice, as a song that it reminded me of instantly, because it's like, Gaslight Anthem definitely was not on Zernell Gillie's mind, to my understanding, as he was saying in that live stream about what he was kind of interested in. I don't even know if he knows who Gaslight Anthem is, but that idea that you can still find that connection, as you were kind of talking about, making it a personal experience where it's like, I have now, what I have done is I've smelled the fragrance, and then I took that and went, what does this now remind me of? As opposed to kind of bringing in those preconceived notions of like, this is my definition of rock, and that is the only definition of rock. And it's one of those things, when I thought about that as a concept, that certain people were like, that's not what rock should smell like, blah, blah, blah. Rock should be like this and stuff. I was like, it is like I'm back in high school, where I was like having arguments with people about how it was like, well, that band's a hardcore band, it's not a punk band. It's like, well, what's the difference? It's like, well, historically, and then it turns into this whole thing where
their eyes glaze over.
There was a part of me that wanted to go and get a PhD in sociology and write about punk rock and all that stuff, but I didn't. But yes, that was me. But now I'm so succinct and never over-explain things.
But
you got another
returning to the fragrance itself, though, like we've talked about how it smells like, as you get through the mid and you start to get into the dry down a little bit, you get more of the woods, and whatever white Olabanum smells like, because I've never smelled a fragrance that has it.
There's definitely an edge to it, that's the thing that I will say, is like, it keeps an edge, which I do like. Like, it smooths at certain points, but it keeps an edge. Like,
and you get and there's also that metallic musk that he put as a note, you know.
Yeah. Which I think is like, if I'm saying like which of those notes would be a note that I'd point out and be like, he gets it, it's that note. Right? Like, if you had to pinpoint a specific note about what rock is, that metallic musk as a note, I think is gotta be the one that stands out to me, just because, like, not only is it like evoking like metal, but just like the metallic nature, if you're talking about rock, is probably like, it has that most sort of industrial, which again, style of music in the genre, it is that, right? Like, if you had to pick one, because like, I wouldn't necessarily say something like electronic music or something like that isn't metallic to me. When I think of what music is metallic, I think of rock, because it's like, so much of that process is, there's this interesting sort of dynamic of like the organic movement of someone utilizing an instrument that's plugged into an amp, all the types of metal and things that are being used,
the strings of
stadiums, the strings
of the guitar, the strings of the bass, the hi-hats of the drum set, which typically pierce through like the sound of the song itself, you know, when you hear them hit the hi-hat, you're going to hear that, and it's going to cut through everything. That definitely fits the metallic musk type of theme that he put into the fragrance, for sure.
Yeah, but again, the blending though, it has that, like, that's the one thing, like the cacophony of sound that you get in sort of rock songs, like there's still a groove, right? Like it's still, there's that smoothness, even as it is kind of playing this sort of balance of smooth and pinpointed and sheer sometimes.
Yeah. And that's kind of brings us to the point where we can talk about just the fragrance itself and what we think about it personally.
Yeah.
Of like, do we like the fragrance? Personally, yes. I very much like the fragrance. I think it's a fragrance that I will be wearing quite a bit over the summer, spring, and fall. I think it'd be interesting to try this out in the winter just to see how it reacts to the cold, because there are some fragrances that when you wear it and you enter a cold space, it kind of changes the fragrance, that you get a blast of it and you may get a different aspect that you didn't get before. So,
and his stuff, I believe, it's all extracts. So
yeah, lots of oil.
It's still gonna be there in the cold. Like I think you're correct. Out of all of the ones that are more kind of on the fresher side, disco, this R&B, some of the stuff like that, I think this one has literally that ability to cut through a cold.
Yeah.
I love this as well. This has jumped up. I own 4 of the fragrances. Like I didn't necessarily think rock was going to be that one that was like, oh, you know, kind of like maybe neck and neck. Like that's my problem is between like these 3. It's hard for me to pick. I mean, it's this. This is number 1. It's not hard.
Yeah, but it's not too far off from being like number 1.
The amount of times that I've reached for this in weather that could be perfectly fine to wear this, like that's telling. It's a different vibe. Like house is that sort of tonka raspberry enveloping sweet kind of thing. Rock, if you spray on rock before walking out the door for the day, you're energized, man. Like that is something that I can definitely say without a doubt, that rock has that immediate punch that you're not going to get in most of his other scents.
Yeah,
is that one where that?
I think you could definitely say this probably has the best opening out of all of his fragrances, and that can lead to you using a lot more of the fragrance just so you can re-experience the opening multiple times. As somebody who has another fragrance from another house that I have used quite a bit, has used quite a bit of it from Chicago, based out of Chicago as well, that I use quite a bit of just because I like the opening so much. And rock is definitely going to be one of those things where I'll spray it on just so I can experience the opening. And the rest of the fragrance is perfectly fine experiencing the rest of the fragrance as well. Like
the other one, it doesn't live and die on the opening.
Yeah,
which is really good. It is nice that it doesn't live and die on it. And I can say that I've had those moments where I'm like, oh, you know, the opening's kind of fading away, going about my day, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, something smells really good. It's me.
I still smell pretty good. It's pretty damn good.
I still smell pretty damn good.
I think that's a great spot to kind of finish it off right there. Harken back to the start where we talked about how we just like to smell really damn good. And Rock by Zernell Gillie will definitely give you that feeling of smelling pretty damn good.
Yes. Again, if you are tiptoeing into niche, Jordan, the gentleman that was on the Frag-Out live stream yesterday when we were recording this, who's kind of new to perfumery in general, this is the house that you start with, I think, if you want to start with niche. independent niche. Like I would make the claim that certain fragrances that Zernell Gillie is putting out are better introductions to niche than something like a Mancera that everyone talks about as kind of your intro to niche, because I think that the quality is far surpassing something like that. Not to knock Mancera as a house, it's just I'm just super impressed with what Zernell Gillie is able to do with basically a one-man operation, pretty much.
Well, kind of like a perfumer, and the mind behind it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So, thank you very much for coming and watching us here talk about it. And there's definitely going to be more of these types of deep dives. Sean might not be with me, but he may be with me. Like, I'm pretty sure whenever we're going to talk about Zernell Gillie, we're probably going to have Sean on talking about it. But as far as future fragrances we'll talk about on the deep dives, reviews / critiques, then you never know who might be here. So until then,
if you want a little bit deeper of an understanding of something, if you are someone that nerds out about this hobby, this is someone that you should be listening to. If you haven't seen his interviews that he's doing with perfumers and brand owners, if you're a hobbyist, this is a hobbyist channel. This is not a top 10. This is not a what's going to get you compliments. This is fragrance as an art form, not a utility, which I think is important. I think it is an art form, and it should be treated as such. So,
and appreciated as such, right?
Indeed.
I appreciate that for you saying that for me. And until the next time, if you want to finish off with your catchphrase.
What do I say? Oh, yeah. Hope you have a good evening, afternoon, morning, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon. Take care.
Take care.